What's up, guys? In this video I want to talk about a new rule that I have created because I'm cool like that, called the Wichita Kansas Rule. Okay, now the Wichita Kansas Rule simply states that your results are determined more by your environment than any other factor. For example, your skill set, experience level, your level of expertise, which I guess is your experience level. Anyway, all that stuff. The environment that you're in is more important than all of those things according to the Wichita Kansas Rule. So I'm going to explain how I discovered this, or who I stole it from, really, and what it means, because there's a lot of words on here and I know how you guys feel about words, at least reading them. It's too much work, I know. So fortunately, you get to listen to my sexy voice explain these things right now. I added some colors on here as well so you guys wouldn't get too bored. So stay with me, try and pay attention. We'll go into it right now. All right, so the Wichita Kansas Rule comes down to this. Well, I guess I'll tell you how I discovered this. Okay, so there's a self-development coach, let's call him, pickup coach. His name is RSD Luke, or Luke Krogh, very intelligent guy, and I was watching a video of his with his good buddy Michael Sartain, who, if you know anything about, I guess, like the Vegas pickup world or club world, since everyone's trying to move away from pickup, these guys are two very, I guess, well-known people. I'm probably not giving them the best introduction, but basically they've been living in Vegas for a long time and they're really good at pickup, and they've kind of mastered all these concepts, and these kind of come from them. Although if you think about it, it is kind of just common sense. So they said in one of their videos, this right here, the original explanation. For example, if you live in Wichita, Kansas, and your game is an 8, then you'll get a girl who is a 4, right? Wichita, Kansas, for those of you who don't know, is not exactly a big, booming, bustling city that a lot of young, cool people move to. It's pretty much the opposite. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody cool there, and generally, attractive girls live in bigger cities. Everyone, you know, the like hot girl of the town is probably not going to stay in the town. She's probably going to go to a place like New York or LA or Vegas or something like that. Okay, and these ratings right here, these are based, I guess, you know, on physical attraction, right? It's generally how women are rated. So think of that what you want. Now, if you live in Dallas, for example, and your game is an 8, then you'll get a girl who's an 8. Right? Dallas is a much bigger city. It's a sprawling metropolis with lots of young people and lots of stuff to do, but it's still not technically the top of the top in terms of the highest concentration of attractive women, right? At least compared to Vegas, right? Vegas, you could argue, is the #1 spot. And if you live in Vegas and your game is an 8, then you'll get a girl who's a 10, right? That's because in this environment, in the Vegas environment, you have a lot of girls who are extremely attractive, right? #1, you have all of the tourists, so you have constantly like new people coming in all the time. Also, a lot of the girls who live in Vegas, a lot of the locals, because Vegas is a city that makes its money from things like nightlife, you know, high-end restaurants. Because there's so much money floating around, I guess you could say, I don't know, in the pickup world they're called hired guns, right? Which is basically girls who make money off of their attractiveness. Models, cocktail waitresses, strippers, of course. I think Vegas, prostitution is legal in Vegas. Anyway, you have a lot of attractive women that go there because attractive women can make a lot of money in Vegas. So anyway, the point of all of this is that the only difference, right? You take the same exact guy whose game is, you know, objectively an 8, and you put him in these 3 different places, he's going to get a different result. One of them is going to be far better. Well, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, you could say the difference between a 10 and an 8 is very large, right? Between an 8 and a 4, it's also very large, right? But to climb those extra 2 points, one could make the argument that it's a fairly large jump, despite the fact that it's only 2 points. So anyway, the point is that you take the same exact guy with the same exact skills, and all you have to do is change the environment, and you will get a much better result if you believe the Wichita Kansas Rule. Now, if we want to extrapolate this to like a formula, let's say, because you know me and my Microsoft Paint skills, I love my formulas. Simply put, if we start in a low quality environment and we have a high skill level, we will get a poor result, right? This was explained in the original explanation, Wichita, Kansas. This would technically be considered a low quality environment for what we're looking for, the result we want, which is an attractive girl. and we take a guy with a high skill level, you could make the argument that having an 8 out of 10 of your game skill is fairly high, definitely above average, and most people, they have shit game. You take out somebody with a high skill level, they will get a poor result, which in this case is a girl who is a 4 again, or I guess I should say, no offense to anybody who lives in Wichita, Kansas, or a town that is similar to Wichita, Kansas. Of course, there are exceptions, but this is generally, the rule. Now we take an average environment, right? Dallas. Now I would even argue that Dallas is an above average environment. I've actually never been to Dallas, but I lived in Houston for a while. There were a lot of attractive girls in Houston. It's a big major city with a lot of industry and a lot of cool stuff going on. However, you take somebody in an average environment, like a major city, let's say, and you put them and they've got a high skill level, they will get a decent result, right? A girl who is an 8, I guess the okay, so I guess the question is, if 8 out of 10 is a high skill level of game, why is an 8 out of 10 on the attractiveness not a good result? Why is a decent result not a good result? And I would argue that the difference is that an 8 out of 10 in terms of game is much better. That's considered a high skill level because there's not a lot of guys who have an 8 out of 10 of game. That's not really it's not very common, right? Most I would say are like a 5 and below. Again, what do I really know? I'm just pulling these numbers out of my ass, but one could make the argument that if you go to an average environment with a high level of skill, let's even change this to a good result, right? Let's just say this is good. But the difference here is that you're probably going to have a lot more guys who are also an 8 out of 10 in terms of game. Now, why do all of these things change when we go to a high quality environment? Now, people may have an attitude towards Vegas. In this example, we're using Vegas, where Vegas is like scummy and it's sleazy and there's all these like ghetto broke people there and a bunch of junkies, and that's not necessarily untrue. I think parts of Vegas are, really bad. I would never want to go there. But there are, a mile stretch or so of Vegas that is really nice, and I would love to spend all my time there because it's full of attractive women and fun stuff to do and excellent customer service and really nice hotels and amazing restaurants. Okay, now you take a high quality environment like that, and high quality here is defined by having lots of attractive women in that environment, because the result that we want is to have a girl who is attractive as possible in this specific example, right? You take a high quality environment like that and you take a high skill level, you're going to get an incredible result. Because getting an incredible result is so much easier in this environment, because simply just you being in that environment is going to get you a much better result on average than if you lived in Wichita, Kansas, for example, right? Your worst, like the ugliest girl, and this is again just using girls as an example, right, in this one, but we'll see in a second how we can extrapolate this to other things. If the ugliest cocktail waitress that you hook up with, or the ugliest, well, I guess there's some unattractive strippers, but generally in Vegas, like the dancers are much more attractive generally than, I guess the ones in Wichita, Kansas. Anyway, the ugliest girl that you'll hook up with in Vegas, who is a girl who is a hired gun, who gets paid for how attractive she is probably way hotter than the hottest girl in, Wichita, or even an above average girl in Texas, right? These girls are way hotter, just objectively. Well, I guess subjectively, but let's say objectively. Okay, so let's talk about some examples, and then we'll talk about why this is important. Okay, so let's talk about another example. Another one I think that is good to go over here is making money, right? If you sell hot dogs and your game is an 8, I'm saying you just have like a little hot dog cart, and I don't know, maybe it's possible that like selling hot dogs from a hot dog cart is some secretly like extremely profitable business, and all these hot dog cart people are actually like millionaires, but I don't really think so. Okay, so if you sell hot dogs on the street and your game is an 8, you'll get a paycheck that is a 4. And I just wrote game in here because I think that's a good summation. Like that could be like, instead of game, we could say skill set, right? Or level adeptness, is that, or adeptitude? That's definitely not a word. Anyway, game could be like just your skill level, I guess, in this case, right? You sell hot dogs, your game's an 8, you'll get a paycheck that's a 4. If you sell real estate and your game is an 8, you'll get a paycheck that's an 8, right? Selling real estate, if you're good at it, you'll make a lot of money. But if you sell companies and your game is an 8, you'll get a paycheck that's a 10. Now, I obviously don't sell companies. I don't know anything about selling companies, but I would assume you sell a hot dog, it's $1, right? You sell real estate. Let's say you sell $1 million homes in Beverly Hills, or $5 million homes. That's a lot of money. You'll make a lot of money doing that. But if you sell companies that are billions of dollars, or hundreds of millions of dollars, or tens or 20s of millions of dollars, then you're going to make a lot more money, even if you're the exact same person. Your sales skills are all the same. Now, why is this important? Now, the thing that we can extrapolate from this is that because most people, I would argue incorrectly, assume that the key to success is improving their skills, what actually is the case is that changing your environment is much more important, right? And I wrote here, while that is important, like obviously you do need the skills, you do need to have, well, you do need to have skills. I'm not saying you shouldn't work on your skills and just go, move somewhere where everybody's getting the result that you want. I mean, I kind of am saying that, but just don't neglect your skills. But the point is that your success is capped by your environment, right? In Wichita, your success is capped. Selling hot dogs from your singular cart on the street, your success is capped at, being like the best hot dog cart salesperson in the world. The guy who's got the best hot dog cart in the world is not going to make any more, I would argue, than the guy who's the worst guy at like selling companies. Real estate is kind of hit or miss because like there's real estate agents who don't sell shit, but let's assume that they sell things. Maybe selling was a bad example, but you get the idea. So anyway, the point is that your results are capped by your environment, okay? Your result will be poor even if you attain a high level of skill, if you are in a poor or low quality environment. That's very important. A lot of people are under the impression that they can just work on their skills and then their environment doesn't matter. But in reality, you need to have a high quality environment if you want to have a good result. Now, here we go. This implies that the most important key to success, I would argue, is choosing the correct environment where success is not only possible, but where a low skill level will be rewarded with an objectively better result, regardless of individual skill. So let's break that down a little bit. What does that mean? In simple terms, when you pick the correct environment and there's a much higher potential success cap, I guess, even if you have a low skill level, when you do succeed, when you do get a win, you'll get a much better result than a good result in a lower quality environment, right? And then there's other people who say like once you finally put yourself into a higher quality environment, you'll naturally step up your game. I didn't put that in here, but I think that's worth mentioning as well. For example, let's say you I don't know, let's say you have a job and whatever, you work in some boring office and it's a small company and there's 10 people that work there and you are on the phone trying to make some sales. Fine. Maybe you're not that motivated. Maybe you like don't put too much effort into your appearance. Maybe you're just not really that motivated to like rise to the occasion, so to speak. But if you get a job selling, I don't know, like $10 million farming contracts to super rich farmers in South Africa, where you get flown around on private jets or all around the world, and you have to wear suits and you get flown around on private jets, and your meetings are with like millionaires and billionaires, you're going to step up your game naturally. You're going to put more effort into your appearance, into your sales skills, into giving good customer service, because the stakes are so much higher. Right? So therefore, picking the correct environment as defined by your ideal outcome is far more important than picking a random or non-ideal environment and relying on your individual level of skill to make you successful. In other words, figure out where the highest level of success is possible and go there now. Right? So this is one of those things that like, okay, so number one, first what you have to do is you have to define what your ideal outcome is. In this first example, the girl example, right? Let's just that, because this is an easy one. You just want the hottest girls, right? You want the hottest girls. Where are the hottest girls? They're in Vegas. A lot of guys, when they get into pickup, they don't really think about the fact that they want the hottest girls. This is another little tangent, but and I think the reason is because a lot of guys get into it just as to kind of get over their own fear of approaching girls in public places, because it's kind of like an achievement to do something like that. And getting girls that are extremely hot is something that comes later once you get over that, right? Once you get over that and you can finally do the approaches and your game is decent, what ends up happening, and I'm not the best in the world by any means, but what I've noticed is that I there, you know, you run out of targets who you feel are worth the effort, really is what it comes down to. Anyway, let's talk about fitness, I guess, in this one. Now, this is a little bit more challenging, I would argue, when it comes to fitness, because there's a lot of misinformation, and you have the issue of genetics, which kind of skew things. For example, right, let's say, you know, one of these things right here, let's keep it simple, right? If you do OMAD, I guess, and your game, right, your level of skill with doing OMAD is an 8, you'll get a body or a weight loss result that's, well, I guess not a 4. That would probably be this middle one right here. Let's say this middle one is OMAD, for example, and this top one right here is, I don't know, just eating whatever randomly, like vegan or something. I guess actually, now that I think about it, it's a little bit more complicated to do with fitness because there's so much misinformation, and quote unquote doing things properly is not something that is, one could make the argument, easily measured in an objective sense, unless you're just judging by people's results, right? But it's not necessarily the case that like all the people who are super jacked and have amazing bodies are hanging out in the same place, except in a couple cases that I just thought of just now. For example, let's talk about gymnastics, right? If you look at a gymnast's body, they have a certain type of body, right? They're like pretty much jacked, they're super flexible. So it's like if you do gymnastics and your level of skill in gymnastics is an 8, for example, you'll get a body that's not necessarily, that's a 10, but is like a gymnast's, right? Which is a 10 out of 10 result, if that's your thing. So basically, anyway, the point is that when it comes down to fitness, do what the people, like if you want a certain result, do the activities that the people who have that result are getting. And if possible, where it says here, go, like I wrote here, go there now, that I actually meant like go to their physical location. In the case of fitness, it could be like go to the place where those people are training. So bottom line, if you want a body like a CrossFitter, go do CrossFit. If you want a body like a gymnast, go do gymnastics. If you want a body, and this is kind of the problem, if you want a body like your average bro who like goes to the gym and does bodybuilding, then go to the gym and do bodybuilding. A lot of people, or a lot of the times everybody, self included, we do things out of convenience because we want to do something. We want to feel like we're getting some, like we're making progress in some way. But the issue is that we don't have a clearly defined outcome. We don't have a clearly defined goal of what we want. And as a result, we pick some action that we believe will slightly pull us in a more positive direction. But because we don't have a clear idea of exactly what we want, there's no way for us to actually get there because we have no idea what we're doing. We haven't even defined where it is we want to go. Okay, that is the Wichita, Kansas Rule, brought to you by Luke Krogh and Michael Sartain. Phrased by me, Stuart Oden, aka Yalapapi. I hope that was interesting to you or informative, informational. If it was, let me know, leave me a comment. What do you think about that? Is this too many words on the screen for some of you? If you've watched this far, I doubt it, but let's just like secretly laugh at all those people who turned off this video before. Anyway, you have any questions, comments? You want to see another type of video? Do you guys like these? I don't even know. Let me know, leave me a comment. Peace.